Brian and Kenzie in the morning. And Chicago's alternative all day.
Q101.
Brian and Kenzie on Q101. We're about 5-6 minutes away from a Bonnaroo song scramble. Your chance to get to Bonnaroo to see like 100 bands in 4 days. 2 4-day passes to Bonnaroo for free. Hozier, Vampire Weekend, Queens of the Stone Age, Glass Animals, Insane Clown Posse, Megadeth, Rainbow Kitten Surprise, Mount Joy, so many more. Jack's Mannequin. It just goes on and on and on. And you can be there if you solve the song scramble, which will be 3 of the bands performing. I need the artist and the song titles in a row. They're scrambled up. Got them mixed around for about 9 seconds. So we'll play that in just a few minutes. But today is a great anniversary, and it's the first one we're celebrating of 2025, going back 20 years. We did this all last year with 2024 because 2004 was an iconic year. Turns out 2005, pretty iconic, and this stuff will kind of blow your mind when you think 20 years? 20 years? Well, that's what we're doing today. And today, 20 years ago this week, the iPod Shuffle was released. Now, maybe you remember your iPod Shuffle. I do. I remember it.
I remember mine. It was my first iPod.
I remember the feeling with an iPod. And the iPod Shuffle, by the way, it was actually released officially at the Macworld Conference and Expo January 11th, 2005. And then, of course, it moved on to this week being available. It was the first one to use flash memory. And the iPod Shuffle was like the stick of gum.
Yes.
So not the bigger, square, rectangular iPod with the screen. This had no screen, and it was like a stick of gum.
And it had 2 settings. You could play all your songs in alphabetical order, or you could shuffle them around.
That's right. And I loved to death putting that little stick, because it was so much easier in your pocket, the gum stick size iPod. I'd put it in the front pocket of my jean jacket.
Okay. Cool, Brian. That's awesome.
Which you couldn't do with the bigger iPod.
No, and I'm sure chicks loved that.
Oh.
Is that an iPod in your pocket, or are you just happy to see me?
Oh. Because the older one I used to put in the side pocket of my sweatpants that I wore every day. That's why 2005 was a sweatpants year for me.
The whole year?
I should say the early 2000s were Adidas track pants. That was my era.
Went multiple years of only wearing
Yeah,
sweatpants?
it was my era, my Adidas track pants era.
Your sweatpants
Yeah.
era.
So when they moved it to that stick, I was like, well, this is awesome. It's so much easier and lighter. Now, my thought process first, when Case brought this to me, it was the 20-year anniversary, is what you put first on your iPod, which was always the question.
Mm-hmm.
You have a blank slate hard drive of music. You
Just
can do
a
whatever.
white canvas.
Oh, and always the first thing I would do, in that time frame anyway, was all grunge, the big 4. I'd go Soundgarden, Alice in Chains, Nirvana, Pearl Jam, load it up, every CD, put it all in there. Okay, now I feel comfortable. I've got grunge taken care of. I would say the next thing I moved on to...
You're in your safe space.
Because it was blank and I was nervous. I was, what do I do here? Well, first, let's go safe. Let's put all the grunge on there. I'll be very happy with that.
Because you can't download, with all due respect to them, you can't download like a Red Jumpsuit Apparatus album first.
No.
Because you want Face Down, but you don't really want the other 11 tracks.
No.
You gotta go grunge first as a safety net.
It's kind of like when you're baking a cake and you got to put the base in there first.
Yeah, that's right.
The base of the cake. Okay, now I can add whatever I want on top.
Some would say it's like building a house. You would say it's like baking a cake.
Baking a cake is exactly right. I don't know, and you guys can chime in what you did, the 312-591-8300 with your first iPod. I keep wanting to say iPod. Then I would throw in, of course, usually 311 came into play next.
Naturally. I mean, what are you going to put second? Not 311? I don't think so.
Duh. I don't know, what was do you remember when your first iPod?
So, not to be an a-hole and say how old I was in 2005,
Good Lord.
but I was 6 years old,
Ugh.
and I remember that my dad won an iPod from an iPod Shuffle, the original one from his company at a golf outing.
That's so on point.
I know.
That's what they were giving away. We got an iPod today. Whoever gets a hole-in-one on 16, closest to the pin, gets an iPod.
Before the recession, things were good for the Lowe family.
Sounds
but
pretty good.
he gave me this iPod, and my mom, to this day, is mad at my dad for giving me the iPod Shuffle instead of her.
Wow.
But as a 6-year-old, I was delighted because I remember to this day the first thing that went on my iPod Shuffle was the famed, you and I still love it, Collision Course EP with Linkin Park and Jay-Z.
That tracks. That's perfect.
Life-changing record. And my parents' only rule was I could listen to whatever I want. I could like whatever music I wanted. I had to listen to the clean version of explicit songs, though, which I don't even know if you realize that was a thing, because you would have the red E for
Yes.
explicit, or you would have like a gray C for clean. And I put those 6 clean songs on my iPod Shuffle, and as a first grader, I was living the good life.
Now, I do remember that. Of course, not as a first grader in 2005. I was working at Q101 as Sludge in the afternoons, loving my life.
Oh, yeah, no, good life.
I would see those E's and C's, but I was like, doesn't bother me. I'm an adult. No one's judging me on this explicit lyrics. Also, Karen makes a great point, checking in from the state of Indiana, where we're going to war with today, by the way, Illinois, if you're not aware of that.
And if you missed it, it's a whole thing. It's on the Brian and Kenzie podcast.
She reminds us that you could use that iPod Shuffle 20 years ago today. It came out this week. You can put it on as a necklace.
Oh.
Because the stick of gum, that's what girls would do. They make a necklace out of it.
That's cute. They should bring that back.
Yeah. They don't make them anymore. Now all the iPods are gone. They just stop manufacturing, I should say.
So the original iPod, which came out in 2001, that really bulky rectangular one that had the small screen on it, those are back in production. They sell those at Urban Outfitters now as a vintage item. So they're possibly more expensive than they've ever been, but there are young people out there, people younger than myself, that are shifting back to iPods.
Sean brings up a great point. Also checking in from Indiana, the state that's under war zone right now. My first, and this is so relatable. My first iPod was the 3GS. The first thing I did was figure out how to convert all my Napster files to the format of Apple because they wouldn't go on. You had to convert them. You had to download a converter, if I remember right. They converted them to the file that Apple could upload on their iPod.
I'm already tired. Oh, God.
Because I had so much stuff from Napster, and I'm like, I can't put this on the iPod?
Isn't it weird to think that at some point, I think everybody's done this, where you would pull out your CD collection, you would put a CD in your computer, you would grab a cable and connect your computer to your iPod, and then you would burn the CD onto your iPod. That was looked at the time as an efficient way of downloading music.
Yeah, I think iTunes eventually had a converter.
They did.
You could drag the stuff into iTunes, and then they would convert it for you to get it because Apple said, like, well, we're going to get all of it.
Yeah, but think about how exhausting that sounds now. I got to find a cord. I got to find a CD player. I don't want to do any of that.
I had to get my burned CDs, which were unlabeled, and figure out what I put on them. I put, Hot Jam number 2.
And what was on Hot Jam number 2?
I don't have time to get into it. It's a whole thing.
It's a whole thing.
But Maddie checks in, too. Being 8 or 9 years old around that time, it was Hannah Montana music, High School Musical. She put on her iPod Shuffle first. And then one My Chemical Romance song that I was able to slip by my parents. So accurate. Thank you for checking in. North Chicago also checking in. Jenna remembers that. She bedazzled her iPod Shuffle.
Oh, imagine a bedazzled iPod in necklace mode.
Forget about it.
Oh, what a look.
Jenna in North Chicago, thank you for telling us that tidbit.
The Brian and Kenzie Show.
Q101.
Brian and Kenzie on Q101. And you want to hear how sick Kenzie is? Say something, Kenzie.
Oh, boy. You know what? That Roman, I won't even let him make out with me.
It's Ramblin' Ray, who works down the hallway. We were talking about me trying to buy a snowmobile, and he's an expert. He races snowmobiles, which me and Case decided earlier. That's the coolest thing you can say about someone you know, like, oh, Ramblin' Ray, he's a radio host, and he races snowmobiles.
No, that's not how you say it. You say he's a world champion snowmobile racer.
See what I'm talking about here?
Yeah. Oh, Brian, you thought it was cool that he raced them.
Yeah.
He's actually a world champion.
That was a while ago, though, man. I'm too old for that crap now. But you guys got to come up and ride.
Well, I'd like to. Do I have to buy a snowmobile suit, or do you have one that would fit us? I'm 6'4". Do you have one?
My dad was 6'4". I got something laying around.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, and you talked about Wisconsin. There's some kind of huge races. It's the biggest. It's the snowmobile capital of the world.
Yeah. And there's races going on there this weekend, and there's a couple guys. One was a buddy of mine, Brent Miller. He's from Maple Park.
Okay.
Maple Park, Arkansas.
Okay.
Hillbilly from out there. And then there's another kid that actually races for Red Bull. His name's Gunnar Stern. He's a big shot out of West Chicago. They're both, nationally known and nationally ranked racers. It's crazy. It's a man's sport.
Well, it is. Case, did you know any of this stuff?
Could you imagine being named Gunnar Stern? How better your life would be? Your name's Brian. Imagine being named Gunnar.
Dude's name is Sludge. I got to go get back on the radio and save America.
Ramblin' Ray, thank you for stopping by. World champion snowmobile racer. He's going to let us ride some snowmobiles. And up in Wisconsin, that area of the World Snowmobile Championship area of the world. I guess. Or no, the snowmobile capital of the world. God, if your name's Gunner, your life is set.
Oh, it's so much better than being named Brian or Case.
God.
Case is an object. Gunner is a man.
Yeah. Like, imagine Gunner going to his parents at one point and saying, I want to get into interior decorating. That's not going to happen. You're going to be a snowmobile champion. That's what you're going to do. All right, we do have tickets for Franz Ferdinand. We're going to start off Ticket Butts Thursday in a second, but we have to do a programming note on what tomorrow's show will bring you. We pray Kenzie will be back from the sickness that Case gave her from not washing his hands. That's what happened. Wash your hands when you go in the house. There's a lot of germs out there right now, tons with the flu. Everybody's getting it, so wash your hands right when you get in the house. So hopefully Kenzie's back. And then 7:50, we're going to move up the Bonnaroo Song Scramble to 7:50 because Case does movie reviews at 8 every Friday. And this week, in honor of Notre Dame being in the national championship college football game on Monday night, that will be against Ohio State, he's going to watch Rudy. Again, if you're new to the show, a year ago, Case had barely seen any movies. Now he's seen all the big movies, and that's why we do it every week, the lens of a movie that's 30 years old from a 25-year-old, which before you were born. And Rudy, I really am wondering how you're going to take Rudy. I don't know.
I know literally nothing about it other than that it's the Notre Dame movie.
Okay.
I don't know anything about it.
Perfect. Blank slate. I love it.
I'm going in fresh tonight.
So Rudy at 8 o'clock, that movie review from Case will be tomorrow at 8. And then tomorrow at this time, 8:20, what a treat. A week ago. Was it a week ago?
It was 1 week. It'll be 1 week tomorrow.
Okay.
It works out perfectly. A 7-day wait.
We had a woman named Yasmin, who was labeled in our text system as Yasmin, the DNA test girl, told the wildest story of a family tree you could ever imagine. Unbelievable. And the end point of it is she's waiting for the DNA test results to see who her father is, who her biological father is, because she doesn't know because her mom had 4 kids with 4 different dads.
That's a lot.
Busy.
She was a hobbyist. She should have taken up snowmobile racing instead.
I don't know how health insurance works out in that situation. She has just reached out to us and said the DNA test result is in. And we want Kenzie here for it because she was a big part of that call. So we're not going to give it to you now. She's not going to give it to us. Tomorrow morning at 8:20 a.m., you are not the father, or you are the father. We're going to find out, and it's going to be a wonderful moment for our family here at Q101. So all of that tomorrow morning here on Q101.
The ticket window is open.
Tickets.
Ticket Blitz Thursday.
On Q101.
It starts now every hour. Lauren, Brian Phillips, and us all day long have Franz Ferdinand tickets for the Vic. What a special spot to see Franz Ferdinand. They played the Aragon with Twisted just about a month and a half ago. So it's Saturday, April 5th. Tickets are on sale now from our great friends at Jam Productions. Another year of doing awesome free things for you through Jam and Q101 and Brian and Kenzie. So text the word TAKE, T-A-K-E, TAKE, to 312-591-8300. You have the rest of the hour to text that in. So if you're in the middle of some kind of driving situation right now, you can pause. It's not a race. You can do it once an hour. So you can text TAKE now, and at 9 we'll give you a new keyword for a chance to enter for the same tickets. You can enter every hour. Franz Ferdinand, the Vic, text TAKE to 312-591-8300. It's Brian and Kenzie on Q101.
The Brian and Kenzie Show.
On Q101.
The Brian and Kenzie Show.
On Q101.
Brian and Kenzie on Q101. Again, text TAKE to 312-591-8300 for your chance to get Franz Ferdinand tickets at the Vic. It's Ticket Butts Thursday. Brian and Kenzie on Q101. You have about a half hour to still text TAKE whenever you get a chance to 312-591-8300. Some local news involving the CTA. Whether you take it every day or once in a while, it's certainly been under some scrutiny, a lot from the president, and he is resigning. Now there's a new acting president of the CTA. Dorval Carter, by the way, Jr. is retiring from the agency, and they have promoted someone else who's already been in the organization for 10 years, the CTA president, and she'll be taking over for now while he leaves office. And boy, Nora Learshin is the new CTA president going forward. She's a project coordinator and been with it for 10 years. The biggest problem, and listen, we've made it clear on the show that Case takes the bus to work. I'm not saying that with a tone. I ride the bus. I took the train. I took the Brown line for about 7 years, the Q101 back in the sludge days.
Oh, you're a hero.
I certainly am a pioneer in public transportation.
That's what they say about you, Brian.
And more people that take it, the better. We have the best in the world, believe it or not. I know there's a lot of problems with the CTA, and that's why they needed a change. But having just the trains where they are and the buses where they are and the metro trains, that's not part of the CTA, but still, all of that is certainly incredible access to going to concerts or just getting out of Wrigley Field, let's say, or getting out of Guaranteed Rate Field. Whatever, I think all of us have jumped on the train, and we're lucky to have it. But she's inheriting a mess, I would say.
Can I say my piece on Dorval Carter Jr., the now ex-CTA president?
Well, since Case takes the bus every morning, and I'm not saying that with a tone, feel free to pontificate.
I dream of a day in which the CTA is not feared by any, but celebrated by all. You see, Brian, there are these countries in Europe and in Asia that have these robust public transportation systems that are good for the environment and highly efficient and super safe. And for some reason, this country's never gotten on board with that.
Okay, I'm going to stop you for 1 second. When you inject other countries in comparing to ours, very snooty. Very snooty, condescending. Canada's got the best health care. But ask somebody about Canada about the doctors up there.
And then go, yeah, they're better than what you guys got.
No, they're not.
Oh, my
no,
God.
they're not. Anyway, go ahead. Sounding very snooty off the start. That's what I'm trying to say.
All these other developed nations, right?
Yeah.
They have these robust public transportation
Don't say it
systems.
again. Don't say it again. Move forward.
Chicago has the best public transportation in the U.S., but you and I and everybody who's listening would agree, whether you are somebody who frequently takes the CTA or you're somebody who lives way out in the burbs and is perhaps intimidated or rightfully scared by the CTA when they come into the city. All of this, by and large, is because of Dorval Carter Jr., who from 2021 to 2022 only swiped his CTA card 24 times, and a majority of those trips were only to go to O'Hare. This guy was getting paid, he was getting paid $391,000 a year. That is public record. He was getting paid $391,000 a year to do nothing. The CTA has crumbled under his leadership. They tanked during the pandemic.
Yeah.
They have never been able to restore the ridership they had before 2020. And by the way, Brian, you mentioned that he's retiring. He's retiring into a CEO position at a hospital. I don't know how you do that. I'm jealous of the wealthy and powerful. They have figured out life better than I ever will.
Sure.
But this man has failed upwards into a CEO position.
Well, you've made some good points despite being snooty.
And I will bear that cross.
Sometimes
I have to bear a snooty cross around here.
You could have said all that and not mentioned the other countries. That's the part I'm trying to say here with your argument.
But why are other countries out America-ing America? Because we should have the nicest stuff.
Well, I agree with that, and I think we do in a lot of ways. But
Are you running for office? What was that backpedal?
I'm just taking the other side for a second here. Not his side, because I'm glad he's gone, and I agree with you. To make almost $400,000 a year and let the CTA go to where it was in a situation where we've been. And also, I want to go back to your point. He's only used the CTA 24 times in 4 years being the president. Now, I'm sure they've already talked about it, and I've watched it on WGN's News, where they said they want the new president and this woman that's coming in, I don't know if she's going to be full-time right now, interim, to use it, I don't know, daily at least or weekly. I don't know if there's a number out there. Should you have to use your product to fully understand your product? My point being, if you work at Little Caesars, should you have to eat Little Caesars pizza 80% of the time, let's say you're employed there? I'm just pulling out a number that could be used by the corporate entity.
First of all, I wish 80% of my meals came from Little Caesar.
Fact. Mine too. So maybe that's a bad example.
Well, let me ask you this. Do you think it would be a problem if over the course of a 1.5 year long period, over 365 days, if you only turned on your microphone 24 times, do you think that would be an issue for the radio station?
My job is to use the microphone to talk and hopefully be funny.
Hopefully.
Hopefully.
I don't know where this is going, though.
80% of the time. My point is, it would have to be something else involved in the job, I think, to be warranted the equal level of using the train as being the president of it. Does that make sense?
No. Say that again.
Nah, I'm wrong. Because it's actually pretty much accurate. The most important thing about the CTA is the trains and the buses, and you should be on them. The most important part of being on the radio is the microphone.
I agree.
Okay, so you're right. That was a good analogy.
I know I'm right.
The analogy I was going to, that was hard to say, by the way. The analogy I was going to use that if you're an HVAC guy, should you have to sit out in 3 below zero weather in the yard to understand your customers' disdain and struggle when the product is not working?
Well, ideally, I guess it would be inherently human to understand that struggle in the same way it should be inherently human to use the thing that you have to do for your job. But if there are HVAC guys that are slacking, yeah, we'll put them out in the yard.
Listen, I'm fine with the new CTA president coming in, and they have to take it every day. I'm fine with that. I use it a lot. I don't use it every day. I don't take the bus like case every day, but I use it a lot. And it's very convenient. It stops at all the best spots. I've lived in other cities. When I was exiled from Chicago radio, most other cities don't have a train and bus system like we have.
Think about how insane that is, by the way.
Yeah, we should have. Don't get on your damn
these
box
other
there.
countries
Stop about the other. You have them.
You know
the
what
text
you need
line's backing you. You have them. Stop talking about other countries.
So Europe, you see.
No, they suck. It's Brian and Kenzie on Q101. So hopefully the CTA's moment going forward now is for the better for all of us. Going to Cubs games, going to concerts, using the trains and buses. It's Brian and Kenzie on Q101.
Brian and Kenzie in the morning. And Chicago's alternative all day.
Q101.